Welcome to this meeting of the. Everybody who's coming is here. Is that better?
A lot better for us as well.
Right. Welcome everybody. And first of all, the minutes in front of you. Have you all had a chance to read those? And may I sign those as a fair record of the meeting? Thank you. And we do have a few apologies.
Yes, I have apologies from councillors Bond, Hewitt, Spencer and Jackson.
Thank you. Any declarations of interest? I heard that. In that case, right, first of all, we have the extra item, which came through on the CMIS to everybody. If anyone hasn't had a chance to see it, there's a copy of the report in front of you on your desks. And Mary Wren is going to take us through it. If I can hand over to you, and the technology is working. Thank you, Mary.
Thank you, Chair. I wasn't going to go through the report in great detail. What this actually does is just summarise your arrangements in relation to value for money. Now, this forms part of the auditor's annual report, and this is the second year that you will have received this report. It looks at three key areas across the council. It looks at financial sustainability, your governance arrangements, and arrangements for improving economy, efficiency and effectiveness, generally covering things like partnership working, for example. You'll be pleased to know that we didn't identify any risks of significant weakness as part of our planning, and we do revisit that throughout the audit. We didn't identify any risks in relation to you that we needed to do any specific focus work around. We have raised improvement recommendations, and those are really for members to take forward, and we'll follow those up as part of our audit planning going into 22-23, and we'll report on progress throughout the audit year. So there isn't anything within the report that we need to raise as a particular area of concern. I was just going to hand over to Avatar if there was anything else you wanted to raise, Avatar, but there's certainly no concerns to raise as part of the report presented today.
Yeah, thanks, Mary. And just to emphasise, I think this is quite a clean report compared to other councils. So the improvement recommendations are just really more areas of best practice which the council could implement. One thing to note is that because of the timing of this report, some of these recommendations might not be able to be implemented until the forthcoming financial year, the 23-24 year, just given that we've given recommendations right at the end of this financial year. So just to bear that in mind, and when we come to challenge in the future, say why are these recommendations haven't moved on, it's just there is a timing lag here. So just to take that into mind. And as I say, the improvement recommendations are there just to help the council maybe tighten up arrangements rather than saying that there's actually significant weaknesses. So at that point, we're happy to take any questions.
Thank you for that. Anybody from the floor, any questions? I'm interested to hear you say that compared to other councils, there wasn't anything of any great significance. Take that on board as pleased to hear that, because I do think the value for money is very important as well. So thank you for that report. And now we go on to our item that's number 4, Treasury Management strategy and prudential indicators. John, you can take us through this one.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, members. Audit Risk Committee will be familiar with the quarterly reports that we present to yourselves, detailing how the officers of this council are complying with the underlying Treasury strategy of the council. And what we're bringing to yourselves this afternoon is the proposals to be contained within the Treasury Management Strategy to apply from this point forward. To be clear, it's actually the full council that ultimately approves the Treasury Management Strategy. The role this afternoon of Audit and Risk Committee, if they so desire, is to agree the recommendations to be proposed to full council at the next available meeting of full council. In particular, this report, Audit and Risk members will no doubt recollect the comments and questions posed by Councillor Lockley at the last meeting of Audit and Risk, given interest around some of the investments South Staffordshire Council have made to some specific third parties. In the response, myself and Pete indicated that what's referred to as environmental, social and governance considerations are taken on a heightened importance within the sector of Treasury management. And we detailed how these would be referenced in the Treasury Management Strategy moving forwards, and these have been done so both in paragraph 4.6 of the covering report and 4.1 in Appendix A. So alongside the traditional pillars, if you like, of Treasury management, when public bodies are making investments and are looking to secure traditionally the liquidity investment, the return they can get on the investment and security investment, we are very conscious of this, if you like, fourth pillar that's coming into considerations around environmental, social and governance considerations. And whilst these reports don't sort of change a great deal year on year, there is a sort of subtle evolution, if you like, and the incorporation of these two paragraphs, very much along the lines that you alluded to at the previous meeting, Councillor Lockley, have been taken account of. In terms of the specific recommendations that Audit and Risk Committee are going to be asked to approve for recommendation to full council, the first one is the prudential indicators and limits for 23, 24 to 27 to 28. And these are contained within Appendix A of the report, detailed in page 5 of Appendix A. These represent an assessment of the council's underlying borrowing needs and are primarily derived from the approved medium-term financial strategy that was taken to council in February this year, with particular reference to the expectations inherent within the capital programme that's been approved. Audit and Risk Committee are also asked to recommend to full council what's called the minimum revenue provision statement. It's also contained within Appendix A, paragraph 2.4, setting out the council's policy on minimum revenue provision. In simple terms, as members will know, the council has undertaken borrowing in recent years, and the truth is that borrowings at some point in the future it will need to be repaid. The minimum revenue provision is a technical accounting methodology by which councils ensure that when the day comes that borrowing is due to be repaid, there are sufficient funds available to do so. And the minimum revenue provision statement, detailed on page 6 of Appendix A, is considered a prudent minimum revenue provision with which to ensure the borrowing that we've undertaken to finance the capital financing requirement can be repaid when due. Audit and Risk Committee members are asked to approve for recommendation to full council the Treasury Management Strategy from 23-24 to 27-28 is contained within Appendix A. Section 3 from page 7 sets out all borrowing investment strategies that underpin the operational decisions that can be taken on a day-to-day basis by officers of the council. Members are asked to approve the authorised limit prudential indicator contained within Appendix A, paragraph 3.2. That's within section 3 from page 8, and that sets out the absolute constraints on borrowing by officers, again aligned to the medium-term financial strategy and capital financing requirement. And members will be familiar that when we take quarterly reports to you, those are the absolute constraints we ensure will not be breached on any occasion. And finally, Audit and Risk Committee members are asked to approve the investment strategy 23-24 that's contained in the Treasury Management Strategy, Appendix A, and the detailed criteria that are included in Appendix B. These offer further specific constraints and considerations that are taken into account when making individual investment decisions, all contained in Appendix B. I'm happy, Chair, to answer any questions that members may wish to ask.
Thank you for that. Any questions from the floor? In that case, should we take the 5 recommendations as a block, and are we all agreed to recommend those to full council? Unanimous. Thank you. And now we come to risk management report, which the Director of Finance and Resources is going to talk us through any changes. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Members, you'll have seen the report. I won't go through it in detail, but effectively to give you reassurance that the strategic risk register has been reviewed. It's reviewed on a quarterly basis with CLT and with Cabinet. There's been no major changes to our key strategic risks as an authority. None are rated red at the moment, but happy to take any questions if you've got any concerns about those.
Any questions? No. In that case, the report is noted. Thank you. Item number 6, internal audit, external quality assessment.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Oh, Debbie, okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So yes, in front of you today is the full report of the external assessment of the Internal Audit Service. So on page 60 of your pack, this provides a bit more detail as to why we need to have an external quality assessment. So all internal audit services within the public sector are governed by the Public Sector Internal Audit Standards, and all internal audit services are required to measure themselves against the Public Sector Internal Audit Standards. So annually, I undertake a self-assessment. However, at least once every 5 years, we are required to have an external quality assessment being undertaken of our service. So the previous external assessment was done back in January 2018. So this latest assessment was within that 5-year period and was due in January 23. And this is the report. So we undertook a tendering exercise, and CITFA were the preferred supplier to undertake that external assessment for us. In terms of the assessment, that takes the form of validating the self-assessment that I undertake. So there's an awful lot of documentation that was put forward to support the self-assessment that I do. In addition to that, the assessor also carried out a survey across Staffordshire County Council and also South Staffordshire Council, and interviewed a number of key stakeholders, again, both at Staffordshire County Council and South Staffordshire. So the assessment took place the 16th of January and it lasted 1 week, and the full report is attached as Appendix 1, which is on pages 62 to 77 of your pack. The most important part of that report is the overall conclusion, and what you'll see on page 66 and 67 of your pack is that conclusion, which basically says that we generally conform with all the public sector internal audit standards, and whilst that may sound a little bit wishy-washy, that is the highest category that we can sort of achieve. So we're very pleased with the overall result, and you'll see on page 67 of your pack, if you have a quick look at that, that there are a number, well, all of the various standards we conform to. There are no partial compliance or any non-areas of compliance, and there are no recommendations as such being made. There is one advisory point to note, which is to keep abreast of any changes to the public sector internal audit standards, which may be brought about later on in 23-24 as a result of a review of the global IIA standards, because that is likely to have a knock-on effect on the public sector internal audit standards, depending on what those changes are. So that advisory action is on page 72 of your pack, and again that's something that we'll just keep abreast of during the course of the year. So Chair, we are pleased with the outcome of this review and happy to take any questions in relation to that report.
Thank you very much for that, Debbie. Any comments or questions from the floor? In that case, I think it's down to me to thank you for all your hard work from the internal audit to produce a report like that, which certainly as an audit committee gives us an immense amount of reassurance. And not that we didn't have it, but it's nice to see that other people who have the experience of other internal audits have come out with such a glowing praise, really. Thank you very much to all of you.
Thank you.
Item number 7, this is a review of our internal audit charter. Again, I'm not sure, is this Debbie, is Sue's going to handle this one? Over to you, Sue. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. The report's been brought to you today to ask you to consider and approve the Internal Audit Charter for 2023. The Charter is a requirement of the PSIAS Standard 1000 that we have a charter, and it outlines the activities of internal audit and the reporting lines that we also follow. It also includes risk levels, etc., and the reporting requirements. We bring this to you every year to advise you of any changes. It was originally approved by the committee in April 2015 to confirm there are no significant changes from the charter that was agreed by yourselves in 2022 that I need to make you aware of. As Debbie's just alluded to in relation to the EQA, there is currently a review of the standards being undertaken, and we'll keep abreast of those and review the charter to ensure that it complies with those going forward and bring that back to the committee once those changes are known. Also, just to further to what Debbie's just alluded to in relation to the EQA, the charter was reviewed as part of that process, and on page 68 of your pack, paragraph 5.4 is the outcome from the review that was done by the assessor, and that was a very positive outcome, and he was very pleased with the charter, and it conforms with best practice for PSIAS. Happy to take any questions, Chair.
Any questions? No, I think that's quite straightforward.
Thank you.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it, as they say. Thank you for that. A statement for the exclusion of the press and public. To resolve that the press and public be excluded from the meeting during consideration of the following items on the grounds that they are likely to involve the disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraphs 3 and 7 of Part 1 of Schedule 12A to the Local Government Act 1972. Not that we have many press here, but we stop recording as well.